Okay, welcome back everybody. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making it so that we can save data not just between scenes, but also between playthroughs. So what I mean by that is, see right here my little duder's got 3 hearts. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to grab 2 more hearts. So now he's got 5 hearts. If I exit the playthrough, I'm going to actually find my player's heart containers. I'm going to manually reset that down to like, say 1. Say I want my player only to have 1 heart container. But now, since I've already saved my information, when I hit play, it's going to remember what it should be. So it's the back end of a save system. We're going to do more with the save system. See, back up to 5. We're going to do more with the save system in the next video, where we're going to create some front-end stuff for it. That's also going to include some debugging. But yeah, let's dive right in. Okay, welcome back. So I know it's been a hot minute since I made any videos. Today we're going to continue with our saving the game stuff. We're going to cover the back end of it right now, which is what's going to make the game saving actually work. And then we'll do another video on the front end of it so that you can have a manual save button or control when the player saves or loads. So last time we created this game save manager, and this essentially just holds on to any objects that we want to make sure are persisting in the game's memory in between changing scenes. For our purposes, that was a couple of chests, how many heart containers the player has, how much magic the player has, and what their inventory is. So what I want to do here is I'm going to take this game save manager that we already made, and I want to make a save and load system with it. So I'm going to take that game save manager script. I'm going to open this up in Visual Studio, which I unintelligently did not have open already. Okay, so in our game save manager here, what I want to do is I want to create 2 new functions. The first function is going to be to save the scriptable objects. So this is going to be a public void save scriptables. And then I'm going to make another method to load the scriptables. So this is going to be a public void load scriptables. All right, so essentially what I'm going to do here, just to walk you through everything that's going to happen, I'm going to create a file when we're saving. I'm going to create a file. I'm going to create something called a binary formatter, which is going to allow me to format things into that file. Then I'm going to create what's called a JSON object, JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. I'm going to create a JSON object, and I'm going to take each of the individual objects from my list of scriptable objects. I'm going to put it into its own file. Then I'm going to format that file using the binary formatter. And technically, it's not binary, it's hexadecimal, but that doesn't matter. It's a distinction without difference at the moment. And then I'll close the file. Now, when you load, it's going to be something similar. You're going to check to see if a file exists. And if it does, you're going to open that file. And then you're going to take the JSON object in that file and use it to overwrite what's currently in the list of scriptable objects, and then close the file. So there's a lot of new concepts that are being brought up here. One is creating files, which is going to use something called system.io. JSON objects is new. Binary formatters are new. So there's a lot of new stuff here. Feel free to take this really slowly and refer to outside kind of notation about exactly what each of these things is if you need to. So first thing I'm going to do for saving scriptables. Is I'm going to create a for loop so that I can go through my list of objects. So for int I starts at 0, I is less than objects.count, and it's a list instead of an array, which is why it's count instead of length. I plus plus. Okay, so I want to go through each of the scriptables, each of the objects starting at 0, stopping at 1 less than however many there are. Since they're indexed at 0, that'll be all of them. So what I want to do is create a file. So I'm going to call file stream file equals new. Actually, let's not do it as new. Let's do file.create. And if you'll notice here, this isn't highlighting like it should, but if you take a look, I've got this little light bulb on the left. If I click on the light bulb, it tells me maybe you want to use system.io. And I do, and that fixes it. File.create. And the file I want to create is going to be at the data path for whatever operating system I'm using. So for Windows, it's in like app data. I have no idea where it's at on Mac. Android and iOS, it each has a different position. So rather than hard coding that position, Unity knows what system it's being run on, and it's capable of finding that. So this is going to be application.persistent data path. And I don't want to just do the persistent data path. I want to also do, I want each file to have its own name. So I'm going to add a little plus at the end there. And I'm going to add a string. And I'm going to format this string. Now, formatting strings is something that, again, it's another thing we haven't covered. So there's all kinds of stuff today. So what I'm going to do is open, close quotations. And I'm going to do backslash, meaning to open a new folder. And I'm going to use these curly braces to pass in a 0. And that 0 is really an argument. And I just want to do .dat. This can be any kind of file type. It doesn't have to be .dat. It can be, I don't know, .me, .look here, whatever you want it to be. It just has to be an extension. And then after I do that, I'm going to put a comma, and I'm going to pass in I as my argument. Now, because I'm passing in I as my argument, that means that I is going to replace the 0 right there. So this is going to be 0.dat, 1.dat, 2.dat, up until how many objects I have. All right, so that creates the file. Now the next thing I need to do is create a binary formatter. And this is going to need something else to be brought in. I'm just going to call this binary. Equals new binary formatter. And again, if I go over here, I've got the little light bulb. And I want to do system runtime serialization formatters binary. I think that's what I want. All right, cool. And you can see it adds that using statement up here. New binary formatter, open close parentheses. All right, now I need to create the JSON object. JSON is it's a readable way of structuring a file type. It definitely deserves a video or two on its own, but for now, just believe that I can take a scriptable object, and so long as it's serializable, I can turn it into a JSON object. So since it's a JavaScript object, there's no inbuilt keyword in C# for what it is, so I'm going to use a little bit of JavaScript that works with C#. I'm going to call it var for variant, and I'm just going to call it JSON, JSON, and this is going to be equal to JSON utility dot to JSON, and what I want to send to JSON is objects I. So I want to take whichever part of the loop we're in from that list of objects, and I want to make it a JSON file. Next, I want to use my binary formatter, binary.serialize, and I want to serialize to the file that I created up above, and what I want to serialize to the file is the JSON that I made. And then the last thing I need to do is close that file so that it's not open. So file.close. So that's all we need to save our, well, it's not all we need. It's most of what we need to save our data. The other thing that we need to do, and apologies, this is like the 4th time I've made this video. There's one mistake after another. If I go to my bool values, so I need to change each of my scriptable objects that I made. So I've got my bool value, my float value, my inventory, my item, and I think even the vector value, even though I didn't do it. So what I had been doing was I used this iSerialization callback receiver to reset the initial value to the default value, or the runtime value to be the initial value. I don't need to do that anymore. I'm going to do a different way of doing this. This is how Kyle Hipple had suggested doing it in his blog post on Unity, and so I just followed that, but I found a way that works better for my method of doing stuff. So in bool value, I still have the runtime value and the initial value, but I got rid of the iSerialization callback receiver and the onBefore serialize and onAfter deserialize methods. I got rid of those. And then I also added this tag here for system.serializable. So take a second and do that to your bool value. Go ahead and pause the screen if you need to see what your bool value should look like. And then I did the same thing for my float value, system.serializable. I removed the iSerialization callback receiver, onAfter deserialize, onBefore serialize. Inventory didn't have that, so I just had to add system.serializable, and item needed to have system.serializable. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Now, I need to go through how to load the scriptable objects. So this works very, very similarly. So I'm going to use the same for loop for int I is 0, I is less than objects.count, I++. Except before I load something, I need to make sure that that file actually exists for me to load it. So I'm going to say if file.exists, and the file that I want to check to see if it exists is this application.persistentDataPath, all of this. So I'm just going to grab that, copy it, and paste it right in there. So if that file exists, oh, and I need another, there we go. If that file exists, then I'm going to load it. And loading it is, again, it's very similar to this. I'm going to create a new file. So file stream file is equal to, except instead of creating one, I'm going to open one. File.open, and I want to open persistent data path, but then this takes another argument. This requires, so let's see, yeah. This requires an argument of file mode dot open, close parentheses, and there we go. So there's my file that I'm going to be using. So I'm accessing the file this time by opening it instead of creating a new one. After I access the file, I'm going to need to create another binary formatter, just like before. Binary equals new binary formatter. Now, instead of creating a JSON object and then serializing that JSON object, I'm going to use the JSON utilities from JSON overwrite function. So JSON utility dot from JSON overwrite, and then I need to tell this what I'm going to overwrite. So I'm going to pass in the file, but I'm going to convert the file to a string first by casting it. So in open close parentheses, string, and then whatever comes after this is going to be turned from whatever data type it is into a string. And so I'm going to take the binary.deserialize, and I want to deserialize the file, and then I have to tell it, I have to tell it where I want it to put that. So I'm going to do file, comma, and then I want to put it on objects I. So this is going to take the file, deserialize it using the binary formatter, convert it to a string, and then overwrite that onto objects I. And then the last thing I need to do is file.close. All right, so this is going to allow us to save and load our data between playthroughs. Now, this is the back end of it, which means this is the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. The front end of it, which is like actually making a save button or a reset button, or even better, some debug features so that we can change how things behave. Like, say, set the number of keys from inside the game that the player has so that we can debug more effectively. That's all going to be covered in the next video. So for now, just to prove that this works, I'm going to create a couple more methods here really quick. So my first method is going to be for onEnable. So void onEnable. I want to load scriptables. And then on disable, I want to save scriptables. So this is just going to save our scriptables when we stop playing the game, and it's going to load them when we start playing again. So there we go. I'm going to pop back into Unity here. It's going to think for a second. Now, as it is right now, I don't have any of those files in my system, so it's not going to be reading from anything, or at least I shouldn't. So what I'm going to do is go to my game save manager. I'm going to look at my chest A. Okay, that's empty. My chest B is empty. I'm going to look at my heart containers, make sure I've got 3 of those. I do. Go to my magic, make sure I've got 10 of that. I do. My inventory, I'm going to have my player have nothing in the inventory. And let's just do 100 keys. All right, cool. So now, if I hit play here, since I don't have any of those files saved, it shouldn't have anything to load. Oh, hey, I did have some files saved. So I'm actually going to fix this right now and show you how I can fix it. And this is left over from the fact that I did this video 4 times now. So I'm going to go to my chests first, and I'm going to make sure that they're both. Okay, so this one was open. I'm going to close that one. My heart containers currently set to 6. I'm going to set those to 3. What else? My inventory probably is all messed up. Player inventory, yep. 0 items, 100 keys. All right, so now that I've changed all of this, if I go out, by going out, I saved all of those files. Now if I go back in, it should reset to what it was supposed to be instead of reading from the files. And so there we go. All right, cool. So now, without me changing anything, I'm going to go get my bow. This new microphone picks up a ridiculous amount of stuff, so if that fan is too loud, holy cow. It's like, it's just a laptop fan, and it's like a foot away from the microphone. It seems like it's picking it up like crazy right now, because I can hear it. I'm wearing a monitor now. I can hear it through my headphones, so that's weird. Okay, that index out of range, I think that's coming from the hearts. We can fix that right now. It's not causing an issue at the moment, but it might cause an issue later down the line. And I think TCB Superpig told me about this issue. It's this weird order of operations thing where if you get the bow first and then try to get the key. See, I got the key. I have 101 now, but I didn't get the pop-up saying I got the key. Whereas if you get the key first and the bow second, it's fine. It's weird. But, all right, so 5 heart containers, and then these chests should be open. So if I go out now, and just to prove that it's going to work the way I want it to, I'm going to go to my chest A, and I'm going to change its runtime value. I'm going to change chest B's runtime value. Now if I hit play, I should jump up to 5 hearts, and the 2 chests should both be open. So if I go up here, this treasure chest is open. And if I go down here, this treasure chest is open. So we're saving our data between playthroughs now. Now before I go too much further, let's fix this index out of range exception. Yeah, it's from the heart manager. So heart containers, I'm going to open up the heart manager script here. The problem is the number of heart containers it thinks I should have is bigger than the number of hearts. So when I'm initializing the hearts here, I do for I less than heart containers.runtime value I++. So I'm trying to set a heart active that isn't there. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to add another little check here. If I is less than hearts dot length. Oop, it would help if I spelled hearts correctly. Okay, so there we go. That should fix that issue, so that we're not trying to create a heart where we shouldn't have one. Let's let that save for a second. And then if I hit play, I should no longer get that weird index out of range exception. And there we go, cool. So I want to change a few things again. Right now this is kind of janky, the way that we have to change values. So like my heart containers, I have to go here, I have to change this back to 3. If I want my player back to 3, I have to go to my chest, and I have to manually change this to being open again, or sorry, closed. So this is a little janky. We're going to talk about how we can create a debug menu to make this better. Player inventory. I'm going to say I have no objects and 100 keys. All right, and now when I exit, it's going to save all that information so that if I try to play again, ciao, it should go back to 3 hearts and everything. So there we go. All right, now I just want to check again. Like I said, sorry, I should have written this down. I think it was TCB Superhop in the comments who mentioned the weird issue. But see, if I get the key first, key is fine. I'm up to 101 keys, so I really got that key. And then in my monitor right now, my laptop fan, which I thought was quiet, sounds like a Black Hawk helicopter about to take off. It's crazy. So I need to get that figured out. Okay, going back up to this chest. And see, this time it worked. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. I need to check that out. But there we go. We've got a nice little save data system so that we can save our information between playthroughs. Now, like I said, this is just the back end. We are going to want to change it in ways that makes it more usable and easier to debug stuff. So we will do that soon. If you enjoyed this video or if you learned anything, feel free to give me a like. If you didn't enjoy the video, you can still give me a like. Nobody's going to check. You can also subscribe, hit the bell notification. Just go nuts on those buttons under the video. Just those buttons right down there. Just click them all if you want to. My Discord is an excellent place for you to go if you're looking for people to help. I try to answer all of my YouTube comments. I'm not always very successful at that, but I try. You can join the Discord, but there's a lot of really cool people who know a lot of stuff who are very willing to help in there. So they're pretty awesome. I have a Patreon, which I have a link to in the description down below. Patrons get access to sometimes videos early, but there's a couple Patreon exclusive videos for this series that are on there right now. One about lighting, one about using a virtual joystick control, and then there's going to be another one very soon about fleshing out that mini map. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below, and have yourselves a wonderful day.